Crafters, helping people see better 1 hour at a time.
This is WeatherScope.
Good evening, Bill Keneally with you. A state of emergency has been declared in Fort Collins, Colorado after a night of heavy rains causing catastrophic flooding. At least 4 people are dead and more than 20 people are still unaccounted for in the wreckage of homes and trailers. For more on what's happening at this hour in the Fort Collins area, let's go to Jim Cantori in the Forecast Center. Jim?
And again, that wall of water, that seemingly incompressible wall of water, which worked its way through a trailer park last night, devastating over 90 mobile homes. As a matter of fact, we have some video out of this area. This is near the Spring Creek area in Fort Collins. And you can see, again, the water very, very high. And what happens here, folks, is this thing is just like, I mean, an entity that develops. It takes trees, it takes any kind of debris, and just pushes it downriver, and now you've got this wall of debris and water, which is almost unstoppable because of the force of the water. 1 cubic yard weighing about 1,500 pounds, just pushing everything in its path over or away. They did search over 90 mobile homes, and they have not found any bodies or any folks in there yet. So hopefully what has happened is those folks that got out of their mobile homes before the worst move in. But as Bill mentioned, still 20 people missing from the flooding last night in Fort Collins, Colorado. Well, we talk about the monsoon season a lot, and with that monsoon season comes the threat of this heavy rainfall in the west. On the scene with us out in Fort Collins, Matt Bertram, who's with the American Red Cross. And Matt, thanks for taking the time. We know you're real busy. Could you just describe the situation in Fort Collins for us? We know what has happened. What's it look like right now?
Well, thankfully it hasn't rained yet. It's been, you know, earlier today it looked like it was imminent, and right now it's kind of like yesterday, though. It was very dark and foreboding early in the day, kind of lighten up later, and it looks like it's probably going to be like yesterday. Well, it'll probably start raining in the evening again, but it hasn't rained yet, thankfully.
Well, what do you see? I mean, we've shown scenes from trailer parks, and just, I mean, there's been walls of water that have just basically pushed everything through these trailer parks and along some of the pseudo riverbed there. Give us an idea of any kind of cleanup efforts. Have they found any of the 20 missing people?
I'm not sure the status on 20 missing people yet. It looks like a lot of those folks may not have been home at the time, which would be very good news if that's true. The cleanup efforts are ongoing right now. It's just amazing to see the amount of trailer homes that are turned over on their sides and cars that are just literally moved. And I spoke to a man who last night was just sitting in his house, and what happened is that, you know, the train overturned and the water came in over the embankment, and he jumped out of his mobile home, and within minutes he was up to his chest in water, and it took all his energy to run to higher ground, and he saw people just floating away down, and they were jumping in trying to get people, and it must have been a real surreal experience and something they did not expect. I mean, he said he was just sitting there watching TV, and bam, it was there, the water, and he was up to his waist in water.
Well, since you're with the American Red Cross, Matt, can you give us an idea of the efforts that you guys are taking out there for the residents of Fort Collins that don't have a home to go back to tonight?
Yeah, we have a shelter open tonight at Rocky Mountain High School, and we're opening another shelter at Fort Collins High School. And Rocky Mountain High School, we have tons of wonderful volunteers, and we're meeting with the victims of the flooding, starting to rebuild their lives. We're starting to try to replace items they lost. And also right now we're also providing mental health counseling and preparing for another night in case it does flood again, and in which case we open another shelter for other residents in case we need that. We're hoping we don't need it, but you never know with the weather, with the way it's been in the last few days.
And that is a big concern, Matt, the potential for some more flash flooding tonight, hopefully not in the Fort Collins area, and hopefully none at all. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Let's go ahead and talk about what's happened here. What is this monsoon that develops in the west? And as we show you our special graphics, you can see that it's typically what we seasonally find in the west. I remember just kind of keeping a close eye anywhere from July 4th on into August, this plume of moisture which comes up from the Pacific and the Gulf, and whenever you get a front that comes down and pushes through eastern Colorado, well, now you've got southeast winds at the surface, southwest winds aloft, and you set the stage for enhanced convergence or enhanced activity with thunderstorms. So heavy rain. Of course, the problem is, too, the makeup of the soil. You've got hard soil out there. It's been dry for weeks, and now that soil has not many absorbing qualities. So the water just comes down, and it really doesn't absorb. It just runs right off. So typically, if you get anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of rain in a short period of time, which is what we had here in Fort Collins, boom, that's what happens. All right, Larimer County is where Fort Collins is, right in the middle there. You'll notice we take you back to 9:30 last night. This is not current radar. This is from last night for about 3 hours. You can see what we call the training of some cells where storms develop in one area and train or work over the same areas in several occasions.
This is WeatherScope.
Good evening, Bill Keneally with you. A state of emergency is declared in Fort Collins, Colorado after a night of heavy rains causing catastrophic flooding. At least 5 people are dead, 20 more are missing, and a new statement now has 40 people injured, but only 5 of those hospitalized. That's the good news. But still, again, 20 people unaccounted for in the wreckage of homes and trailers. Welcome to WeatherScope. Let's get the latest now on what's happening in Fort Collins and a wrap-up of what happened earlier today. And with that, here's Jim Cantori.
Thank you very much, Bill. Again, the big problems in Fort Collins continue as just a wall of water basically moved through town there. We want to show you some of the pictures from last night, and it's amazing. We talk a lot in the tropics about the storm surge, and you can see why the power of the water is so essential here and the damage that it can do and the people that can catch off guard. As Bill mentioned, the death toll now up to 5 people. The 5th body found under some debris against a bridge piling. Fort Collins police say that up to 20 people remain missing. Another 40 people were hurt, only 5 of them hospitalized. 2 trailer parks suffered the most damage as the raging waters first roared through, then got backed up by a dam that formed by debris. The whirlpool effect scattered mobile homes and cars like toys. So the water kind of created its own environment there. Joining us now, senior meteorologist Tom Moore. And Tom, a situation like this will develop in the West during the monsoon season. We saw it during the Big Thompson flood nearly to the date back in 21 years. Are we going to see a similar situation again tonight and tomorrow night? Because really not much is changing here.
Not much is changing. We had the weather parameters coming together to bring the flood last night. As you mentioned, July is the peak of the monsoon season. When you get light wind currents aloft, a little bit of turning of wind, you get the upslope component with a big high pressure coming down from Canada, by the way. So you have these factors coming together in a tremendous amount of tropical moisture even for the July monsoon in Colorado.
Let's go ahead and look at it. This is a great water vapor picture of what's going on here. We've watched over the past couple of days, Tom, this deep trough off the west coast, and now with the Bermuda High building west, I mean, you've got nothing but funneling of the deep tropical moisture from the Pacific and even some low level from the Gulf coming up. And what's important here is each day these thunderstorms, which are so concentrated, actually produce precipitation down lower in the atmosphere. So you wind up starting the base of the thunderstorms different each day, and now we've saturated even the low levels.
That's right. It starts out at the highest elevations, you get saturated, it rains, and it comes down. That trough you talked about continues to deepen, so you're just enhancing the monsoonal flow, which is deep tropical moisture coming all the way up from the equatorial areas, actually, of the western Pacific. And you can see these thunderstorms just bubbling up with the daytime heating during the afternoon all over the west. This is an incredible monsoon, Jim. This is expanding all over the entire west, very high dew points, even in the Great Basin.
Well, we're going to focus a little bit on the front range here because of the surface winds coming out of the southeast and the winds aloft basically from the southwest. And we've already had a couple reports of tornadoes in and around Denver, Colorado, and off to the east in those counties. Here's a look at Cheyenne, Tom. We watched some storms developing over the Laramie Mountains. They've moved off to the east, but we think conditions are favorable for a few more here.
Right. You may have a redevelopment farther to the west as another boundary may form back here. Other thing this time of year is the motion of these storms are very sluggish, so incredible amounts of rain could fall. So you could get a flood in a place like Fort Collins one night, and then the next night it might not fall in the same place, but there could be an incredible amount of rain somewhere in this area this evening.
Here's the Denver metro area clearing out a little bit now, storms off to your east. But I wanted you to look at this persistent boundary, which is just east of Denver. That is not moving, and that's where the storms developed, and we may very well see a few more of those, Tom, develop this afternoon.
Right, and we could get an incredible amount of rainfall again in some of these areas in a very, very short period of time, so we're really going to keep our eye on the radars all evening.
Okay, up to the north, Larimer County right now in the clear, so that's good news. And we haven't seen a lot of storms develop yet in the mountains, just a couple. So far so good in the mountains, but don't be fooled. Things can change as we get into tonight, and those boundaries sometimes get pushed off to the west, back into the mountains. So that's where we want you to not let your guard down. And it may not just be Fort Collins. We may be talking about Cheyenne. We may be talking about Pueblo. So it's not just a one-city area. This could be really anywhere along the front range where we have these parameters coming together this afternoon. Some of the rainfall rates, perhaps as high as 2 to 4 inches an hour. Stay tuned. We'll keep you posted. Let's go back to the studio now to find the latest on your forecast with Bill.
All right, Jim, thanks a lot. Well, that old adage, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I think it's very applicable today in the Northeast. We have